Diamond in the rough here. Here it is, the middle almost of February, Black History Month, and I am pissed off. I think almost more so this year than I have been. I'm usually pissed off every Black History Month because we go through the same rigmarole over who we gonna celebrate. We drag out King. We drag out his one speech he made. Don't talk about none of his fundamental speeches he made before the end of his life. We pick one speech and we highlight that, and we don't talk about anything of his really more important and influential speeches that he had made really right before he passed or was assassinated than during a majority of his lifetime with the civil rights movement. So I'm pissed on the regular anyway. I'm just highly pissed this year in 2019. Let me start at the top of the list and work my way down. I don't know if there's any consolation I can gain from this other than maybe to write a research paper on all these subjects. That might ease my pain a little bit, but I doubt it because I'm just that pissed off this time around. Liam Neeson. We get it. We understand your pain at the most heinous crime committed against one of your family members. We get it. I get it. I understand rape is a crime of power. It's not a crime of sex. I understand you wanting to seek vengeance on whoever did that, but to even talk about, I want to go kill any black person I see, waiting on them to say something cross-eyed or look at you crooked to justify your killing of them, that's not the way to go. You're a man of power and privilege. You got the judges, you got the juries, you got the polices, you got the bailiffs, you got the folks in prison, you got the folks running the prison, and you got folks in general society who benefit as a result of that racism in your favor. Let the system work and let that work its way out and down. Take your anger and work to change the construct that allows rape to continue as a man. Deal with it that way, not trying to seek vengeance on someone else. And Miss Michelle Rodriguez, honey, you need to stay in your lane, or you should have stayed in your lane. To suggest that because Liam Neeson was doing a job in a movie with Viola Davis justifies and suggests he's not a racist, he kissed a black woman. Do you know how much stuff is done for money? Strictly because it's a job? And you make it look convincing so you know you're good at your job? So, honey, you should have just stayed in your lane, kept your mouth shut, and let the analysis concretize itself before you even spoke on something that made you look real stupid and have you backpedaling on what you had said in defense of Liam Neeson, what you thought was a defense of him. So you should have minded your business and kept that closed. Kept that little mouth of yours closed. Luxury brands. Why are y'all always making these faux pas? Societal faux pas. Last year it was Prada with the little monkey keychains with the red lips. You should have got the memo then. Didn't get it. This year is Gucci. Under fire for some red lips in a sweater around the lips of which. Both of these examples show, and I will say even for Gucci, I'm not excusing and I'm not accepting for you to say, well, we use Dapper Dan, sophisticated and as fine an artistic fashion presence that he is. That don't justify your dumbness. That don't justify the foolishness. And you only took him in after you got busted stealing one of his designs a couple of years ago. So no, that don't make up, ain't no makeup for that. You don't get points for taking him in after you trying to slap him with one hand and then give him money with the other. That don't justify what you're trying to do. Someone that just says that these luxury brands do not have brown, black, and of color and women folks in the driver's seats of these plans for future campaigns. You don't have anybody who you know. If you can't name more than 4 or 5 black people, not the ones you eat with, not the ones who sweep the floor, not the ones who type your letters or send out your emails or whatever, they don't count. People who work for you don't count. I mean, real friends that can say, look, real talk. This is what you need to do on this campaign. You want to hire me? You can hire me. I got a resume. I'm diverse in cultural sensitivity. I do all that stuff anyway. Put a sister to work. And don't be embarrassed out here in these streets. And I know the campaign or the comeback is, or for some of these campaigns, is that, well, black folks don't buy luxury brands. Guess what? Gucci Man got his name plastered all over his back. Biggie did the same thing, where everything was Gucci, 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 Gucci because he could afford to buy it. So yeah, there's some of us that can afford this stuff, but we ain't up for the shenanigans. And oh, by the way, while I'm thinking of luxury brands, that damn Sharp or Tarte Shape Tape Foundation, y'all get roasted too, because the first time you came out, you had every color of white, bright, light, sand, taupe that you could think of on the planet Earth, and maybe 4 shades that cover somebody not even near my complexion, not even near someone like Naima Tang, and I love her dearly. I love her videos dearly. None of the thing that cover anything darker than light cocoa. And then for you to do a redo of the line and still not be inclusive enough, y'all missed the boat. Especially after It Cosmetics was roasted 2 years ago for not having any inclusion. So no, this is post Fenty. This is Black Lives Matter. This is Me Too. This is in a time and a construct of a discussion that is inclusive, and it's on the street, and it's everywhere, but it's not in your boardrooms. There's a problem with that. If you're smart, you keep your ear to the street and figure out what's happening rather than trying to expropriate culturally. Marc Jacobs, you on that list too, even though that was a couple of years ago for you too. I'm only saying that these luxury brands need to wake up and catch the memo of what is really acceptable and what is not acceptable. Y'all need to start over. Virginia, I don't know. I do know what to say. I'm not surprised at what we see in Virginia. I will argue, in fact, you go through every southern state that was part of the Civil War, who were part of the retraction of the gains made with the Civil War and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Every one of y'all that sought to retrench and retract and redo and erase those gains made after the Civil War, every one of those states, colleges, universities, trade schools, Bible schools, whatever, you flip through all of them yearbooks, I bet you're going to find more than one buckwheat looking somebody, or somebody in blackface, or somebody in a Klan robe, or somebody trying to make light of the fact that black folks is getting lynched and make light of the fact that blackface is funny some kind of way. We're talking about the 40s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s, where these schools printed in their news books, in their newspapers, in their yearbooks. They had secret meetings, public meetings about the denigration of black folk in picture, parody, song, or dance. I was a child of the 70s. Even at the university I went to, there was issues of nooses being loved and nigger being wrote on walls and all kind of exclusionary and derogatory language, even when I went to college for my master's degree. We had this. So why are we surprised that we see it in Virginia? Why are we surprised that the governor can't fess up to the fact that it might have been him in them plaid pants, dressed up like buckwheat, or either the Klansman? He can't remember, but you know, the clothes don't lie. And people know because his friends ratted him out that he did it. Or the Attorney General, Herring, I think his name is. He said, oh, well, yeah, I dressed up as Curtis Blow, thinking it's cool to dress up like black folk. Let me say this to all my friends and people of goodwill, because somebody should have tapped y'all on the shoulder and said, hey, dude, this ain't even cool. Don't even try. Do that. Don't even try this. Don't even try to be something of what you're not. We learned that with the Orange is the New Black BS that went on last year. If you put brown, black, yellow, red paint on your face, trying to be somebody who you're not, it's not cool, and it never ends up good for you. It never does. Trying to be Beyonce, trying to be Jay-Z, trying to be Curtis Blow, trying to be Missy, trying to be Biggie, trying to be Tupac. I don't care. You got vanilla ice. Let that be your manifestation and call it a day. Not nothing other than what you are not. Don't even try to put that on your face and pass it off as, oh, he, we just kicking it and having a good time. Because that's how it always starts before it turn ugly. It starts always having a good time before somebody end up getting lynched. You know, like Richard Pryor used to say, it start with that truck, it start with that beer, it start with that yeehaw, and then a rope get pulled out, and you know, oh, something about to go down bad. So it always start being fun and light before it makes that veer to the right and turn ugly where can't nobody show their face in the light of day the next day because something bad has went on. So Virginia, I don't know what to. I mean, yeah, Virginia, I don't know what to say about you. And even the brother Fairfax, who was caught in the middle between these two positions because he's got some sexual impropriety, where the woman says she PhD. I can't remember her college right now that she's a PhD, a tenured professor with now. But she says it was not consensual. He says it was. Who knows? You all should know better. As men, you should know better. Using your positions of power to extort, use, take advantage of, take the benefit from someone who's an underling, possibly in your study or in your employ or in your social dynamic and circle. Y'all should know better. Last one on my list, crowns. I know some of y'all seen a video by Kelly Rowland. Kelly, you should have known better. I know as artistic talent, they want you to be the campaign and the next face, but sis, you have not enough sisters of diversity. Even though I understand short hair, red hair, blonde hair is an issue for some folks in the majority community, it's not the same of not having acceptance because you're dark like me or darker than me and hair more fuzzier than mine, and you get chastised for either wearing braids or wearing an afro or people pulling your hair from behind. Because yeah, that shit happened to me. I just wish I had the God sense back when it happened to grab a couple fingers and snap them off at the root for trying to touch my hair. I wish I'd had the courage as a third grader to do shit like that. Oh, and that's saying a bad word, and I'm so sorry. But I'm only saying this to say that, Kelly, there's people out here who has done it better and bigger and more true to it than what you were trying to do with that crown campaign. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if y'all going to reshoot it. Y'all need to reshoot it and put some real sisters in there who are more chocolate than me, who are darker than me, whose hair is more fuzzier than mine in that campaign, and I'll take the wig off so we can see your hair too. I know this is all about truth telling. I understand the glam factor. But you'd missed the mark with this campaign because, you didn't even tell it in the right way. But someone who did tell it the right way, I'll tell you, it's a young sister in Brazil called MC Soffia. She talks about race, she talks about gender, she talks about exclusion, and she talks about acceptance of your hair and the love of Africa. And she's only I think 15 or 16 years old. She might be 17 now. She's a Brazilian sister, and what makes her story more unique is that Brazil was one of the many Spanish, Portuguese possessions in the Southern Hemisphere who justified their level of blackness and acceptance of blackness by creating this gradation of color. Carl Degler's book, Neither Black Nor White, talks about these steps or these levels of blackness, of which the lighter you are, the more accepted you are, even though you got some melanin mixed in there with your heritage. But Sister Sophia talks about it, includes voices that are hers, that are genuine, that are unique, that are true to the cause, and speak better to it than your campaign of what Dove was trying to do. I wouldn't be surprised if y'all saw Sister MC Sophia's video and took some snippets from that, because when I see the Dove campaign crown and I look back at Sister Sophia's video, I see a lot of similarities, sis. Allegedly. I got to use that. Allegedly. I don't know if y'all stole or not, but again, y'all need some cultural ambassadors who are at the pulse of this so that you can make these campaigns true. And to me, and this is just me, this is my feelings, it smells like that Shea Moisture campaign where they ditched their core audience in favor of the majority, where they changed the formulation to accept a wider appeal, but you lost your core in it. Same thing that happened with Carol's daughter, allegedly, when they sold out to L'Oreal. Changed the formulation. It ain't been the sense since Carol and her daughter done left the brand. I know it's a money move. I understand that. But all I'm saying with all of these issues that, one, we need cultural ambassadors who are going to speak to these companies and make these things true. Secondly, we need people who are in the mix, who are part of that majority culture. When they hear the dumbness going on, they need to tap them on the shoulder, especially those of conscience and goodwill, and say, dude, do that. I don't think I'd be dressing up in no blackface. Because, they bounce. I don't think I'm going to be, they talk about this stuff in the locker room, at the coffee table, in the lunchroom before they do it. Or even in their homes and in their, pool rooms and relaxed areas of their home. I think I want to do this for the holiday. Dude, I don't think I'd do that. Not a good look. Not a good look. So I am arguing that people of goodwill need to step up their game, and folks of conscience, or rather those who are cultural ambassadors, who got their fingers on the pulse of the culture, to really speak to these companies and be the influencers that we need to be. I think at some level, we need a change of heart. We need people who are really about the business of changing the dialogue, of changing the construct, really being about the business of changing it. And on a third note, I think the dominant society in the West need to acknowledge that they use black imagery, black representation, cultural appropriation to further their own designs and means. This ain't the first time that blacks have been used and Africans have been used to sell products. It happened from the beginning of the slave trade, and it happened during the colonial period in Africa, where the first to conquer the person who you want to denigrate, you have to treat them as non-human. You have to treat them as secondary, as no-class citizens, of not being sophisticated, of not having a culture. Because once you can do that, you can do with them what you will. Once you denigrate them, you can have the example of a Sarji Bartman, who was tricked into coming to this country, or coming into England, and put in a zoo, living zoos as they called them in the 19th century. Exploited, died alone, and even in death she was exploited. Genitalia in a jar, because she had that big, chunk of butt. Laughed at for that, made spectacle of that. I'm going to insert some pictures throughout this video of the imagery of how we were used in advertising, overseas and domestically, because many of these images, even though blackface ain't cool here, guess what? They using it in Germany. Guess what? They using it in Japan. The Harajuku section of Japan, Tokyo, I believe, where they got Asian folks dressing up in blackface. They got that all over the Asian, or not Asian, but rather the Japanese culture. Hidden, yes. Slowly coming to light, possibly, especially in Europe, where there ain't no thing to talk about black folks, or the Dutch to talk about, Black Peter. So this idea of denigration of the black, denigration of the African, it's a global phenomenon, and not just here in the United States. They just have hidden some of it. Just like last year when folks argued to take down the Confederate flag, the sale went underground. Because I can tell you right now, there's places in the South you can buy Confederate flags if you want them bad enough. They're just not on public display like they used to be, but they're still there. I'm only arguing here that because of the orientation and the upbringing start of this country, most, if not all of our legislators who are in power today, who are over 60 years old, and I might say even 40 years old, have some bit of racist something running through their backstory, whether in fun or jest or actual practice through policy and legislation. There are folks there who acknowledged that it was okay to make fun of Black folks, because that's more recent in this country's history than not. So the expectation is for us, with the critical eye and that third eye open, is to say, well, yeah, there's some folks who probably got some of that racist streak that just ain't been exposed yet. All we got to do is sit back and drink our tea and drink our coffee and sip our sodas and watch the shenanigans happen, because there will be more. Trust me, there will be more yearbooks opened up and unfolded and laughed at. And don't be surprised if you see some Black folks in some of them pictures dressed in blackface too, because they think it's funny, because their third eye is not open. Their consciousness is not open. So this is all I think I got to say with all of the shenanigans and this foolishness. I'll put some links to MC Soffia and some of the stories with regard to the Virginia debacle happening as we speak in their political landscape, and some of the sourcings I use for some of the materials. Oh, by the way, I leave you all now with the remainder of 2 more weeks of Black History Month to go on. Lord knows what we're going to see in the last 2 weeks. This is Diamond in the Rough signing off. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, pass on these videos if there's something of some piece that you think is of merit for someone else, or send it to someone who you think might need to know some of this stuff that they don't know because they stuck on stupid.